Superb. Okay, so what I did is we put this session together. The idea just behind 10 quick wins using Office 365, focused on Office 365 because everyone in education in Scotland's got access to Glow, every teacher, every pupil. So everyone has Office 365 by default. There are some other authorities who have requested access to the G Suite tools from Google. Those are available if you're not sure if you've got those or not. Speak to your Glow Key contact, your ICT coordinator, or whoever it is that organises that for your local authority. However, the Office 365 tools, as I say, are available to everybody, so that's why I focused on those tools in particular. So what I really want to be able to do today is, for my part, I'll try and give you a guide to the tools and how I think you could use those to support blended learning. And Jacqueline's got a wee bit more to say about the blended learning approach and models and how you would bundle these activities into blended math so that you've got on and offline learning. So first part I always like to start with is paint that picture about why digital skills are so important, why we even have a digital skills team. We've got the comments there from the OECD chair, I think that was, just explaining the importance of them. And on the right hand side there's a wee graphic there from Skills Development Scotland's digital report, which came out, I think it was just the tail end of last year or the very start of this year. And you can see digital technologies are the fastest growing sector in Scotland. Obviously not the biggest yet, but they're the fastest growing year on year. They grow, and there's about 13,000 new jobs every year in digital technologies. However, I don't think that fully takes into the account that there's not a job in the land, there's not a job in the world you do that doesn't involve digital literacy at some point of that, whether that's applying for a job online, creating a CV with a word processing application, or to check your bank account or check your payments, your pay slips, etc. Those are usually done by email or an online system for most people these days. So at some point there's digital literacy in all of that, so it should absolutely be a part of everything that we teach. So super important there. Also about creativity, and this graphic came from one of my colleagues in the creativity team. And there's these 4 skills, and I think when we look at the skills that employers are looking for from people these days, creativity is right up there at the top of the list. And these are the 4 skills defined by Creative Scotland around what creativity is. So I'm hoping that some of the ideas I'm going to suggest will spark a bit of creativity for yourself and come up with creative new ways of using the ideas that we share today to make sure that you can reach as many learners as possible. Again, we've got the enhancing learning and teaching. That's part of the how we're going to solve or how we're going to use digital technology, digital learning, digital teaching. So we've got the policy paper there, and we've created these on the right hand side of the screen, the digital learner diagram, and there's a digital teacher, digital school, etc. And those try to come up with 7 statements that you can really work towards. They encapsulate the E's and O's, the benchmarks, and those principles and practice paper into 7 easy to access statements. So I'd like to recommend that if at any point you're thinking, how am I going to measure or plan for digital learners in my class, that diagram's a great place to start, and anything you're going to plan should meet one of those statements. And again, for developing yourself, there's the digital teacher diagram, and if you're looking at a school level, there is the digital school vision. So again, thinking about what's our school strategy possibly going to look like next year, what skills do we need to make sure that we capture or develop, and that digital vision diagram. So those are available on our digilearn.scot blog. There's a section for digital visions. And again, along with the how, the part with the refreshed curriculum narrative. So again, that if we are planning for those areas, then we can obviously make sure that we've got blended learning and we're capturing or we're developing rounded learners. Again, thinking about the moderation cycle, if we plan for creativity, we can get creativity in our learning, just like if we plan for digital. It's got to really go in at that early stage. You've got to think, and some of the examples we'll give today will touch on assessing digitally, as well as the delivery and the other parts there as well. So digital can be any part of those, and if we just think about digital, we've got that digital vision diagram to hand when we're thinking about planning and assessing and delivery of teaching. It's a lot easier to make sure you've got the digital in rather than thinking I'll just I'll just throw in some digital at the end there. So making sure it goes in from the very start, obviously it makes it more meaningful. And the last wee part for me, just about the what, some of the things that you can use. You've also got the E's and O's there to direct what you might be doing for the digital literacy, or your numeracy and mathematics. But we've also got a document called What Digital Learning Might Look Like. You can find that on Twitter with the hashtag WDLMLL. It's on the Improvement Hub at Education Scotland, or if you just Google what digital learning might look like, it's a pretty distinctive name, so usually it's top of the list there. There's a document covering early through to second so far, and we're hoping to add third and fourth to it, and it is just a big book, a big PDF of ideas about how you can get digital literacy and digital skills into different areas in your classroom. So big book of ideas, well worth having a look at there. That's it from me. Just now I'm going to pass you over to Jacqueline.
Great, thanks. So basically, if you've carried out any research into blended learning, you've probably noticed that the definitions kind of vary from research to research across the literature. Most definitions, however, they will indicate that within a blended learning approach, learners will have some control over the time, place, path, or the pace, and that varies because obviously for younger children that can be quite tricky as well. But we'll talk a wee bit about that as we go on. It's likely of how the flow of how this goes will look a little bit like that diagram in the bottom. Maybe not day to day, but it's that they'll be in school, they'll be out school, they'll be in school, they'll be out school. All local authorities have different policies on how this is looking, and I know that they are all just being kind of finalised just now, but I think it's really important that you're really clear on what your local authority policy is, because decisions are being made at local level as well. I think as well, when you're looking at the blended learning, it really is important to consider the equity of access to technology, and I know that you'll have been doing that already. Can I just check everybody's mics are off? Sorry. Just as you come in, sometimes it comes in with your mic on. Just means we don't get feedback. So what I would say is that just make sure that you are taking that into consideration, and I'm teaching a granny to suck eggs here because I know you'll have been doing that anyway, and that some local authorities are suggesting that not all home learning should be technology based as well, and that some of it is offline work as well. But again, consult your local authority on the policy, or even your individual school, because they're all different. So as I've mentioned as well, there's different models of blended learning, and what we're going to do is we're just going to look at a couple of them today because we don't have time to look at them all. And the ones that we're going to look at are kind of the most popular ones that people have been kind of talking about as well. But again, look at your local authority policy because it might be that they want you to follow one particular way. Some local authorities haven't finalised this, so it may be that you don't have that information to hand yet. And also on the right hand side there's a wee bit of further reading. That first document, I would say, is really interesting because it was written before all the COVID-19 happened, and it is based in higher education, but it is a really interesting read. And there's a few more links there, and then the West Partnership have released a couple of papers as well, which are really easy to read and worth following. And I don't know if any other RICs have done that, but it's worth having a look at them anyway to see. Can you put the next slide on, George, please, if that's okay? So the two models that we're going to look at are flipped learning and the traditional model. And you may have heard talk about some of this, you may have been using some of the models, but we just kind of wanted to look at how this actually looks specifically within maths. So for a flipped model, initial learning will actually take place at home, and that may be whether you find some videos on YouTube, or it may be that you record teaching or lessons, or you get them from colleagues, or you create them together. It looks different. It can look different, but basically the learning will take place at home, and the learner's in charge of how they do that and when they do that. But obviously that doesn't come without its pitfalls, because you need to make sure that the quality of the tutorials or the videos are of high quality, because some of the things that you find on YouTube are absolutely brilliant, some are not so, and could actually end up confusing the learner. So it is really, really important that these resources are quality assured. And I know that can be difficult because time is going to be really precious, and I think it's just really important that if you are using that model, that you really try and quality assure that with colleagues where you can. I know that for some people you can't do that. George, could you just check that other people are in? Because I've just seen there's a message that some people still aren't in as well. Thanks.
Yep.
So this diagram here, the link to the website I got that from, it's just at the bottom there, flippedlearning.org. So if you want to look at that, there's other models in there as well, and there's other models for other curricular areas as well. but it's worth having a look at that. But it's just really where the teacher sets something for them to do at home, they do that, and it might be it is likely that it would be through technology. And then there's always that age-old kind of problem is, did they use it? Did they engage with it? Because you will have learners that are completely engaging all the time. You'll have learners that are engaging some of the time, and learners that are not engaging at all. So you have to kind of think, how am I going to address this? So what I liked about this is it gave you a nice flow chart of what to do then. And it's nothing that you probably don't already do anyway, but it's just sometimes it's quite reassuring to hear, these kind of messages as well. So if they watch the video, then you can review their understanding, if they've managed to do this. If you think where they are with the learning, you can do that in school. If they haven't, then probably what you would need to do is try and set time aside that they can go and actually view that content as well. And then you need to check for their understanding, all of them, and then if they haven't understood, reteach the concept, revisit it, look at it from a different approach. If they have, then they should go on and try. What I would also recommend there is that they're given opportunities to apply that new learning into a new or unfamiliar concept as well. So that's a kind of flipped learning approach. Or there's a more traditional model where the learning would actually take place right in the classroom. It would begin in the classroom or whatever building or room or wherever you are, and then the learners would be sent consolidation tasks to carry out at home, practice activities, retrieval practice, all of that, and then they would come back and you would assess where they are with that. So there's the two different models, and it may be that your authority wants to look at one particular one or a different one, or it may be that you use a kind of blend of these two types of models, and that's absolutely that has to be decided at local level as well. So George, could you stick the next slide on, please?
Sure. That's a blended approach.
Thank you. Yeah, the blended approach. So it really is important to kind of consider these key bullet points. And I know we are kind of going through at quite a pace today, but as George says, this has been recorded and you'll be able to stop and have a look at it. And the presentation will be available as well. So if you want to just go back and revisit or use it to share with colleagues as well. But these are just some of the things that are really important to consider when you're moving forward with the blended approach. So, and what I want to say as well is, yesterday I was in a forum with with principal teachers from secondary schools, and they were saying that some of their authorities are allowing live recording of lessons and live interaction with learners, and some are not. And that's, again, it's entirely up to your local authority. So you might be in a situation where you're allowed to deliver lessons live, and you may be in a situation where you're not. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. And if you're in any doubt, double check just to make sure that you aren't going against what they're wanting you to do or the policy. But it really is key that the learning at home and school joins up, because learners know when they're given a task just for the sake of being given a task. So you need to make sure that they'll value it more if they can see that what they're doing off-site actually connects really well with what they're doing on-site as well, and that connection makes sense to them. Your success criteria is always going to be crucial here, particularly when you don't have that control over them all the time. They're not with you at all situations. So it puts them back in the driving seat, and it means that they can see how successful they have been along the road as well. So it really is crucial, and we need to keep that going. Also, a really key point is think about what you want them to learn first. What is the learning to look like first, and then think about your method of delivery and what would be the best way. Because if we start planning around the method of delivery, then we might lose the key learning there, and we really don't want that to happen as well. And I've just put a wee bit of a definition in there about the synchronous and asynchronous learning, and as I've kind of said already, is some of you will not be able to do synchronous learning when they're working remote, and in fact you'll have children in front of you as well, which would make that not possible. What some of the principal teachers yesterday were saying is that they are recording their presentations as they're delivering them, and then making them available for learners so that they can access them. The ones that have been in class, they can access them again to revisit any points that they didn't quite catch, or for the people who are off site, that they can actually visit them as well. So George is now going to talk about some of the tools. He gets the fun part. He gets the good, interesting, fun, practical parts. So he's going to show you some of the tools, and then I'm going to show you how you can use some of them together for an actual concept within maths.
Super, thanks for that, Jacqueline. And can I just double check that you can see my screen just now? It should be a Word document.
I can see it.
See it there? Great. So the first one I want to start with, it's again, hopefully it is grannies and eggs, etc. With Microsoft Word, and in fact with a lot of the Microsoft tools you're now getting, you've got Immersive Reader built in. So for me, it's one of those tools, I think, when you've got learners that are perhaps off-site, and just to ensure that everybody can access the learning that you're giving them. So in terms of word problems, if you give them a digital copy of a word problem, for example, from Enrich or some other site, as you can see, I've got a word problem here. I've put it into Microsoft Word, and if I go up to the View button at the top of the page, I have the Immersive Reader option. Can I just ask you, it looks like somebody stuck their webcam back on, if you can just make sure your video and your mic are off by hovering the mouse in the middle of the screen there. And again, I'm hoping everybody's seen this tool, and we'll just going over old ground with it, because it really is such a powerful tool. But any text in Microsoft Word, the tool is also built into Forms, OneNote, part of Teams, and I'm trying to think where else it is just now as well. There's other apps that are external to Go as well, which will now use it, like Flipgrid and ThingLink. So Immersive Reader is popping up absolutely everywhere. But once you load it up, you can see I've got options for changing the way the text appears. So again, if I've got to read this at home on my own, I can make the text suitable to myself. If I've got a visual stress, or dyslexia, anything like that, I've got I can change the background colours to suit myself. But the most important part is the play button here.
Thomas and Matthew are saving up money to buy a video game together. Thomas has saved £30. Matthew
has saved £35.
So for my readers to be able to, perhaps they get stuck if they've got literacy needs, and you're asking them to complete word problems, it's really important that they can access and read those word problems. Again, they might not have someone at home to go over the wording with them when they're not in school. So this tool really puts the power back in their hand. What's really useful as well is we've got a built-in picture dictionary, and it is board board maker symbols that are used for this. So for most of the words here, it will show them a picture. So there's someone buying things in different contexts, and if they're not sure what that word says,
why,
they can have it read to them, and you can even choose different languages. So if you had someone who spoke Bulgarian, for example, so that's it in Bulgarian. So again, it might be supporting learners that are EAL or have a support needs such as dyslexia. That just makes that accessible to them, so they can look at the pictures. So if they're not sure the word, there it is. That's what we're talking about here, and that can get rid of some of the ambiguity. Another part, just while we're on Word, I'd like to look at is the fact that we've got highlighters built in. So quite a common strategy in maths we talk about is looking for the maths words there. So you might look at total, for example. So let's highlight that. Let's highlight the amount of money. And that should hopefully get your learners, you've probably covered strategies like that in the class in the past, but it's about reminding pupils that they've got access to these tools through Office 365 and Glow. So hopefully your learners are thinking there, total, that's an addition. So I've got 30 and I've got 35. If I add those up, I've got 65. So your learners could show their work and thinking like that, which I think is useful to. Just a wee throwaway one there. We have got highlighters to hand. You don't have to worry about whether they've got highlighters or not for that strategy. If you're giving them the word problems in a Word format or electronically, and they can copy it over to Word. So that's the first wee trick I wanted to show, the Immersive Reader and the highlighting tools in Word, just to help with things like word problems, or if you've got more complex instructions, or you've got a sort of text page explaining how to do something, the Immersive Reader will read that to them. I've even just opened up through PowerPoint. There's two bits I want to show you here in PowerPoint. The first one's a bit of a cheat, I'm going to admit, because it's not using Office 365 online. You do have to have the desktop version for this. So when you go to present your slideshow, I'm going to come back to that in a wee second, because there's a new part they've added. But if I choose to open in desktop, so I do need to have the desktop version installed. But as a reminder, if I go to the Glow homepage, your Glow Launchpad, just a wee reminder for everybody, if you go to the app library and search for Office, You have the first tile here, the Office 365, which will let you access all those Office 365 online tools. However, this tool here, just a reminder, is a free download of Office 365 to a number of devices. So every learner, if I remember right, it's 4 copies per device, and that's for multiple devices. So your learner could have Office installed on their phone, their tablet, iPad, laptop, desktop, and they could have that on 2 laptops at home if they had to. So perhaps they're working between mum and dad's, or somebody, 2 adults at home have got laptops. You can have Office downloaded on both of those, and your learner can access their Glow through that. So it's really useful to remember that that's there. I mean, Office costs about £100 a year if I'm right for a subscription, but you can get that for free through Glow. So once you open PowerPoint up offline on the desktop version, when you are presenting your slideshow, you can record it. And if I hit this very quickly, now we've got a whole tutorial on this online, but very quickly, it will record me talking through the slides, and as I go through my examples, I can use the pen to mark up, so I could highlight some text and images on the screen here. When I'm finished, I can close that part over, and if I go up to File and Export, I can choose to create a video. Now, it's worth bearing in mind, I'm hearing some people saying, oh, it's difficult getting videos up online. If you're exporting it as Ultra or Full HD, it is going to take a long time to render and to post online. I'd probably suggest you stick to standard if you're going to share that through Teams or anything. A wee bit lower resolution, but it really shouldn't matter if pupils are viewing it on mobile devices at home. And press Create Video, and it will export everything you've covered in your slides. It will go through all of those, and you can export that. So in terms of the models Jacqueline was speaking about, you can prepare beforehand, you can have your slides ready to go, you can narrate over all the ideas, you can use that pen to draw and ink to the screen how you might lay out a calculation. One of the worked examples I've got that you'll find in our YouTube playlist is using coins. I've taken image snips of coins from MathSpot, and I've manoeuvred them on the page while I'm talking, and I've highlighted or drawn how I'm counting, and I'm showing my thinking, and I'm showing the process to my learners. I can record that, and then I can use that wherever I need to, whether it's sharing it on Teams or you've got a YouTube channel, whatever you do to share video. So you can create your own videos, give that out as a tutorial, and your learners can access that at home, do some learning activities, and then come into the class probably Monday morning ready for learning with you. So that's the screen record. Another alternative to that, and this just got launched at the weekend. Set to grab a wee drink there. This was launched at the weekend. If you go to Slideshow, there's a new option to present live. So you can choose only people in your organisation. So in order to join this presentation, they would have to enter their Glow details, or you can share it to anyone. So you can join along live with me if you like on this. This is something we'll need to consider for future presentations. But when you start up Present Live, you can scan that if you're sitting at home with your mobile device. You can scan the QR code, or you can see the join code up in the top right corner is ppt.ms/YAKYN37E. You can see there's 10 people joined it. And what I can do is I can talk you through my slides live. So rather than having to worry, as Jacqueline said, about whether or not you're allowed to present live video, perhaps you could be asking your local authority, can I present live without a video? Does that how does that sit? So it's a new tool. What I can also add here with the option at the bottom is the live captioning. So as long as I take my time, I enunciate and I speak clearly, you'll see that it will even caption as I go. So for your learners, that will also be something to consider. I'm going to turn that off before it captures something I didn't say. Somebody sending me applause. Don't know how that works. I've not seen that yet. And I can go through these slides, through my examples. And it looks like I've already captured some recording on that demo there. So I can pause it and I can end the session. So that's a whole other way of delivering. You could capture your video live and present that to your learners before you work face to face with them. Or you could even perhaps be, Jacqueline mentioned, you could be in the classroom, you could use Present Live, and you could have learners in front of you looking at that on the board in the classroom, and you could have learners looking at it at home at the same time. So worth considering these, as we say, new ways of working. We did a webinar yesterday with Daydream Believers speaking about creative bravery, and it maybe is going to take a bit of bravery to try these new ways of working, and they're certainly quite creative. The version, Miss Mayor's just asking there, this is brand new on Office 365, so I am using the online Glow version, and when I go to slideshow, I have an option to present live. That is being rolled out. It doesn't look like you can present live at the moment. You could use a screen recorder, I suppose, to capture it, like I'm doing just now. I've got a different piece of software running to record that. There are free and there are paid for versions of different software you might want to use for recording, but you can't use the PowerPoint Present Live and record at the same time yet. But that might be one to drop into the Microsoft suggestion box and ask if they could make that work. So that's really handy to be able to present live, or to be able to present, record, and then deliver that later. The beauty as well of being able to create a video and export it is you can share that with learners, and we can go back and look at it whenever they like. So if you give learners a video, they can watch it in their own time. So if they miss what you said, a bit like our webinar today, they can go back and access it in their own time, at their own pace. Pupils can access it. They can't access the live presentation, the Present Live. That can't be captured at the moment, I understand. That's just for you to present live. If you wanted pupils to access it later, you can still share those slides with the share button. So if you've made the PowerPoint, you can share it to your learners through Glow with the share button up here. Or you could record it. If you wanted them to hear your narration, you're going to have to open it in the desktop app, record it, and then export it as a video. So there's some tips around PowerPoint, and the Present Live is brand new, so it's one of the ones I've had a wee bit of a play with it. I suggest you go and have a look and see what you would use it for. As I say, brand new tool. So what I'd like to jump to next is OneNote, and I'm just going to use OneNote within Teams. I close that. I have a demo team here. In fact, I can do it in this team here just now. Just be a OneNote in here. In fact, I'll come back to that later. I'll use one I've already got set up. So I've got a practice team here. What's great about OneNote is it forms a part of Teams. So if you're already using Teams, you can see some examples I've got here from earlier. So OneNote is just like a big digital textbook. It's very flexible. What I like to do is use it with some other manipulatives. So for this example, I'm going to jump away to MathSpot and grab my counting stick. I quite like to use this one. I can use Screen Snip to grab the image I want. And what I'm going to do is back in my digital notebook here. So we're looking at VIP numbers, for example. I can paste any image into this, so it's like a digital jotter. And I think in the first example you see, Word doesn't necessarily lend itself to calculations. There's a lot of layout issues there. How do I get the numbers to line up, the digits to line up and keep it tidy? And for me, OneNote is the answer to this. So I can put on my counting stick here, and I'm just going to go to draw. And I'm going to use the pencil tool here. So if I find my stylus, again, I'm using a touch screen just now, so that's an advantage, but you can use your mouse to draw in this as well. You can even type into the box. You can see there as well. So we can add text, but I'm wanting to work on the 6 times table with my learners. And if I'm using that VIP number approach, I hope I'm doing that one right. So these are the stations, the multiples of the 6 times table I'm going up in, and I'm going to lean on my learners' prior knowledge here, so they should know that 6 ones are 6. I'm going to presume we'll talk about the 6 times table, so I would expect my learners are probably confident in the 2, the 5 and the 10. So 6 times 2, they know that's 12. 6 times 5 is 30. We're leaning on that prior knowledge. And then from here, what I'm going to ask them to do is I could present that to my learner, and ask them to complete it at home. I could be doing a worked example like this in the classroom and leave it for my learners to go back to later. Just to demonstrate, I'm going to switch to a different colour of pen to show that they could perhaps take a different colour and add to this. So if they don't know the 3 times table quite so well, but they know 12 add on 6, they could work through their tables that way, and 30 take away 6, they can work back and get 24. So they can start to use their knowledge of other tables, and it almost fills that line in. I don't know if that's a strategy you do use with numeracy, but I think it's a great way using OneNote that your learners can actually write out and show their understanding. Again, for example, you might want to talk about counting on, and they can spot that each time it's going up in 6s, and they're adding a 6 each time. So you can just keep on adding to that. And the fact is, I'm not sure how I would do that otherwise with my learners without being able to ink. And even if we're going for a more formal strategy, if I just scroll down the page here, if I'm doing some more formal written strategies, don't shout at me, Jacqueline, if I get it wrong with this one. If I've got 632, add on 124. It might upset some people. I don't have a ruler tool yet, but I can still show how I have worked that out. And if my learner gets an error, again, I can always come back as the teacher and I can perhaps point out to them, just check this column here. And I could also, hope this is going to work live, I've got an audio recording feature here. So just take a wee look at your calculation here in the hundreds column. You've done 6 add on 1, you've got 8. Can you double check 6 add on 1? Have a wee think about that and see if you need to change anything there. So I can record a wee voice note on my learner's jotter effectively. So whether they're doing that at home or in the class, but again, this helps the asynchronous blended approach, because when you give verbal feedback to your learners, you're relying on them being able to remember what you said. Whereas when you capture an audio recording for your verbal feedback, you can actually say to your learners, go back and listen to the verbal feedback I gave you. So they can go back and listen to that as they need to. Just make sure I'm on the right tool. I should be able to click on that and hear my live. I've got an audio recording feature here. So just take a wee look at your calculation here in the hundreds column. You've done, so it's really useful, and at the same time we can flip that around and you could have your learners recording and explaining. So that could be part of your assessment strategy for, say, you could get learners to do their calculations, show their counting, and then record how they did it, and they can talk you through step by step. You could use that as assessment and say, yep, I've heard them explain it. They understand how they're doing that. They're confident. They're ready to move on. Or they require a wee bit more support. But also I've seen some great examples of learners using that for each other, where they can record those voice notes on the shared page like this, and they could give ideas to each other. So I saw a great example of someone who'd sent they'd used a OneNote, they'd written on the class OneNote like this, the shared area, and they'd explained to their classmates how they were doing the calculations. So it's really powerful that learners are able to do that. Superb, so that's the voice record. I'm going to step on a new page here just to demonstrate one more. I'm going to show you the maths tool, and a wee bit out of my comfort zone here. I can type. So I could do 2x plus 6 equals 16, and I can also write that. So again, I can type it and I can ink that. Either way, whichever way I do it, I've got this maths tool at the top of the page, and what it tells you is write your equation and then use the typing or the grab tool. So it's going to close that guidance. I'm going to grab this. So it grabs all the numbers, they're all highlighted. If I press the maths tool, it's going to read that as 2x plus 16. Now I had an issue with this when I practiced it, and it was reading my 6s as a B, so a bit more deliberate in doing it. But what you can do is, if it does read something wrong, you can select the part that's wrong and correct it and say, I actually meant this to be a B or a G or whatever, depending on your handwriting. It is indeed a 6. So there's my maths equation, and what I can do now is I can solve it for x. So the AI in this is reading it, it understands that I want to solve it for x. It's a bit of algebra. Tell me that x is 5, and then I can show steps, and it will go through step by step how to solve that. So it's saying obviously take the 6 across. When it changes sides, it changes signs. So this should be supporting all the learning and teaching. This isn't a tool to teach. This is a tool to support. So again, you'd have to explain about when the digits change side, they change signs, etc. And you're going to obviously be responsible for the maths. But it means that learners can check it when they've completed their calculation, or if they're getting something wrong, they can have a look and see if there's any advice on how to sort it. And hopefully you recognise this symbol. And what it does is it opens up Immersive Reader, and it will talk the learner through step by step.
Subtract 6 from 16 to get 10.
So it's going to talk my learner through. So again, we're removing any literacy barriers there, and it talks it through down to x equals 5. And this is a fairly new, I think it's been up for a few months, but a new addition. I can generate a practice quiz. So what it's going to do is it's going to use Microsoft Forms. I want three practice questions is fine. So again, it really puts that power in the learner's hands. If this is the type of calculations they're doing, it will generate them 3 more examples. So if your learner are quite confident they're getting through these, they can set their own practice quizzes. And again, they're going to have to do the working for that. Perhaps they want to do their working on the side of the page. Can do their working over here for the 3. Get my pen to work. 3x plus 13 equals 40. And they can go through until they've solved that, select the right answer, and that will auto-assess. It will give them instant feedback if they were correct or not. So again, just thinking about how you generate the learning for the learners when they're at home or in class, they can take a wee bit of responsibility, a wee bit of independence here to create their own further learning with that one. So the algebra tool in there, if I can also just show you before I go, if I can get this to go away. It's going to annoy me. Let's take a new page to get it out of the way. When I do that example, I made it 16, didn't I? If I go to the maths tool, if I select it, if I choose maths, hopefully it's understanding it again. You can see here under the actions, I'm not going to tell you how to teach algebraic graphs, but what you can do is it will plot you a graph for that equation, which you can insert the page. I know there are other tools that do that online, but it is built into OneNote and Teams, so there's another wee win if you're working at that level. Never understood, if I'm honest, graphs for algebra, but I'm sure you do. There's a tool you can use as well. So that's OneNote as part of Teams as well. You can use OneNote on its own, but I think the fact it's built into Teams, that is pretty handy. Another wee bit, you can see I did it in the, in fact I'll do it live with us in the chat just now. I can create a poll, so this is part of Teams. If I type at forms, not froms, forms, type at forms, it's going to let me create a quick survey. So if you're doing some data handling, create real-time data. Hopefully you can see that pop up on my screen. So how did you travel to school today? That's a common one, certainly in the primary. So again, I can allow multiple answers for that, but anyone in your team can access that. So you can have a wee look again. That's what it looks like. You can edit it before you send it, but once you send that, the learners can access it. So again, learners can create that for each other. So if you've got a class of 33 there in Teams, they don't all have to be in the class. Some of your learners might be in the class, some of them won't. But if they're working on Teams, they can create their own polls. and they can get some data there. So automatically, I've not left the room. I don't have any of you in front of me. No one is here with me at the moment. Yet I'm collecting data for information handling without leaving the room. So again, learners could be doing that for people within their teams. So that will also be dependent on them having a team to share that with. Whether that's you've got perhaps joint classes to be able to do wee activities like this and maybe bundle some P4, 5s and 6s there. Maybe all your S1s have got an S1 team as part of the school as well as their individual class teams, but they can do their own responses and their own quizzes there. All I had to do was type at forms and it gave me a wizard that walks me through step by step how to create that data. So that's really useful for grabbing something and saves the knock on the classroom door. Always when you're teaching writing, certainly in a primary school, you're always about to start writing. You've done all your planning, all your prep, your scaffolding's complete. You're about to put pencil to paper and somebody chaps the door to ask what your favourite crisps are. So really useful to be able to use that wee tool there. And again, I'm seeing that the overwhelming one is that I haven't left the house. It's interesting times. Someone on a webinar yesterday says that we are now living at home rather than working from home. We're living at work. So you've got these tools and so do your learners. It's worth showing as well as part of Teams, you've got a calendar here on the left hand side. So your learners in Teams also have access to a calendar. So perhaps rather than having that textbook, the workbook out or a worksheet that you've got somewhere or you've created for calendar and date activities, actually being able to use real calendars in real life. You've got a calendar here, so you might well ask your learners to go through and find dates and say, do you know, that perhaps creating a timetable, so on a Monday morning we're going to have some maths and that's going to last until 10 o'clock. You put that in and then we're going to have break. Only works in half hour, so you can have a half hour break. They've one, and you can add in, so you could create their timetable there. You can also tell it there will be an option to repeat weekly, so they could build an online timetable that they can access at home or in school. If you wanted them to work synchronously, whether they're in or out of school, you've got that there. You could get them again challenges to put on, put in your parents, everybody at home, mum, dad, brother, sister, aunts, uncles, whoever lives there. You could add their dates to the calendar so they're actually working in a real live calendar that might become useful for them as they go forward. Hopefully, as we return to more normality, you could begin to add in things like sports days. What was it? Oh, got you there. Sorry, Jacqueline. Yeah, well pointed out. So I can put in 9:15 if it's not on the list. They'll only get 15 minutes for a break again. Or 15 minutes for maths. It's a win. So they've now got 15 minutes for maths and a half hour for break. But the fact that learners can access and use a real meaningful timetable, well worth having a think about how you incorporate that into your learning. So that's the calendar tool. That's part of Teams as well. I even thought that you have this conversation space. So I've put in an example here. I created, go to the right team. In this demo team, I created a wee quick concept cartoon that I drew in PowerPoint. Put that in and I can ask my learners, so I can tag any learner, put at the front, choose the learner. Jacqueline, can your group discuss this concept? And the learners could go back in and add their thoughts on that. So I agree with the green, I disagree with the blue because. So again, you're getting some discussion, and that could be for learners in and out of class. So you could get your learners to do that at home, and then when they come in on Monday morning, you can have that class discussion and you're ready to go. You could be having that with your learners when half of them are in the class and half of them are out of the class, and everyone can access it at the same time. So Teams has got loads going on there, not maybe necessarily designed as maths tools, but I think if we're a wee bit more creative with it, we can make it maths tools. So the last few bits I'm going to go really quick. I think I've already hit 10 of the ideas, but I want to show you one more and I'm going to hand you back to Jacqueline, and hopefully it is, again, grannies and eggs, but just that wee reminder, So there's my plants. I've got some data here, so I'm growing some plants in the garden or in the classroom, wherever you're doing this experiment. So bundling up your science, your maths, and indeed your digital literacy here. So there's 3 E's and O's at the one time. 3 different plants. I've measured them by week, and in the old days we used to have to capture that and tell it to make a table. Again, I can go up to insert, and I can choose, I've got recommended charts. So if I'm not sure what kind of chart I want to create, Excel is going to use AI, and it's going to read that and suggest some different charts. So here are the growths week on week for each plant, or for each plant per week. It's going to look at each plant by week 3 only, so it's going to filter that data with a pivot chart there. So it's going to show me it's just week 3, and it's saying here that the sunflower has noticeably higher week 3 height. So something really happened in week 3. So it's even making those insights into data to really get our learners to start to think about what is happening. See, there's 20 more results. So it's got 20 odd different examples. So I can choose a chart and insert that. Or if I know the chart I want, I really want that to be a pie chart for some reason, I can tell it, I can choose that from the list. So I can go up to insert, and I can choose the type of charts I want. Another wee assistance with this is if I select my data, if I go up to home, I have to select the data. If I go up to home, there's this ideas button, which is available in the online version. If I select ideas, again, that AI is going to kick in, and it's giving me those suggested charts, but it's also asking me which field is it. So it's going to perform some pivot functions there. And if I only really want to look at a particular part of it for, say, week 1, it's then going to tailor the charts to. So if your question in the worksheet is about what happened in week 1, which plant grew the most in week 2, for example, learners can use these tools to focus in on the parts of the data that they need to focus on. And you can also ask it a question, which plant grew most? We'll see how well it understands English. So this plant number 3 grew the most, so the sunflower grew the most. So it's telling me plant 3 grew the most. It's perhaps, you've got to watch just obviously with the word in there. It's a computer, you've got to maybe use some of the suggestions and see which, so you can ask it questions in English with different varying degrees of success there. But all those tools are there. Yeah, great idea, some Mr. McDowell there. So yeah, however you're going to use these things, to something stand out in the data. Another wee quick tool I'm going to show you, not part of Office 365. This is a freebie. Mockaroo. This is a website. You can tell it the data you'd like it to generate, and it will generate either as a range of different ones, but you get CSV and you get Excel. Either of those will open in Excel. So if you needed to create data for your class and you don't want to make up a class of 30 learners, you could use Mockaroo to create an Excel or a CSV file, which you can then open up in Excel, and learners could then have more data to handle if you wanted to generate that for them. So again, you can create that as an Excel and pop it in here. But that's all done. Learners don't have to worry. Sometimes I think we do worry, do they have access to digital devices? But what about, do they have access to a ruler, a sharp pencil, a jotter? Do they have access to space and time to sit and draw a graph in a chart in a jotter or a workbook? So perhaps they're able to do some of these on a mobile device without needing the same space or time or access to a range of tools that they maybe don't all necessarily have. So in the insights, the ideas tool up there is obviously, again, that wee helper, helping them think about what they need to do. So again, they can share that learning back to you through the Office 365 share button. The last one I didn't get to is forms, but we have a webinar already all about forms. If you haven't seen forms, well worth having a look at forms. You can create a form or a quiz. Forms are for evaluation. Quizzes are self-marking. You can set them up to mark. So if you use multiple choice questions, you can create a quiz which is self-marking. So if I select it there, I've told it that this is the correct answer. and when my learner selects B, the quiz will tell them that they are correct, and if they're not, tell them it's incorrect. What's really useful is you can add feedback there. So you can say to them, have a look at the video, and you can even put a link to the video in there. What you could do is up at the top here, you can add a video for the question, if I can find the option. So I can add a video for the question from YouTube. So if you'd created, I believe it is only YouTube we can use at the moment in Glow, so you'd have to have access to that. But if your learners are working at home, you could create a video, upload it to your own YouTube channel, keep that private, share the link, and when learners open the quiz, they can watch you doing the tutorial and the instruction and then answer questions based on that, and you've got it all self-contained in the one place. So a bit of a whistle-stop tour from me. We're just about to come up to time, so I'm going to hand back over to Jacqueline very quickly. Hopefully there's some ideas and questions being generated as I'm going through that there. Jacqueline, you all right to take over? I'll pop up your sway.
I think there's too many people in this house trying to use the Wi-Fi. So this is a factors sequence using Sway. So I just kind of thought I'd take you right through the process of what I've used just to kind of help you, and I'll give you the link to this as well so that you can access this in your own time. Again, all learners are different. I have to always use that caveat, and you know, we wouldn't want them to just picking this up and using it, but adapting it to meet their own situation. So that's it. Go on, George. Sorry. So learning intention, success criteria, we'll just race through it. Click the next one if you can. And then what we've got here is a link to a factors video. So what you would be doing is asking the children to watch the factors video. They watch that. Within that, it's got, I think it's actually got 2 videos in that one, and then there's some wee tasks underneath each video as well. So they do that. Then they go into the next slide. And then what they can do is click on each slide one at a time, and it tells them, it's quite clear, it tells them. So George, if you can do that. There's only a few here. So what are the factors of 8? So they can just shout them out at the computer, and then it tells them if they were correct or not, or if they missed them. And I practiced this with my own daughter who's in primary 6. So she could see very quickly, oh, I missed such and such a one. So, and it just kind of goes through. I've not put too many on because, again, looking at engagement levels, speaking to lots of other teachers from across the country, they've been saying that the most success they've had is with short, sharp things that they can do. So if the learner goes through that and then they're still a bit confused and they're not sure, then there's another video that links to YouTube there that kind of talks through the what factors are. Some will ignore it, some might look at it, and then it takes you to the last one. I think it's the last one. Oh no, so just explain out loud to somebody in your house what a factor or a number is, or just say it out loud without, you know, if nobody's around, because I know some people aren't able to. And then what it does is it takes them to a very short Microsoft Forms link. On reflection, I probably would have put this in quizzes, but I didn't, but you can put it in quiz. So which of these is a factor of 15? And this basically will give you a bit of your assessment. Now, I know that you don't know how much support they've had, so it makes it a bit tricky, but it gives you a bit of an indication for some. So they can go through that. There's not that many. That'll be submitted. You'll get the live data from that whenever they complete it, or whenever you go in and check it, and that might give you a starting point for going back. There's also a wee bit of self-assessment in at the end of that one as well. So then, if you can come out of the factors now, George.
To the presentation, please.
Presentation.
Thank you. I'm just going to be very quick because I know that we're short of time here. I just kind of put a slide together to show how that can be blended with the on-school approach as well.
I've recorded on that now.
It's just coming, I think.
Is that the one? Blended flipped approach?
Yep, I can't see it again, but as long as you can all see, that's the main thing. So you'll see that's the learning at home, that factor sway, and then the learning in school is on the right-hand side. And just the different things that you would normally be doing, I would probably start with the formative assessment, and it might just be that they're using whiteboards and you say a number and they have to list factors, so you can see very quickly, you know, who has grasped that concept. I think it's also important to use the manipulative and pictorial representations, even if they've understood them, because it will just give them that deeper conceptual understanding. And that will also give you the opportunity to see who needs a bit of extra support or who needs pushed on a wee bit further, you know, putting it into word problems or mixing it up with multiples as well. And then there's a wee enrich number in there as well. Some people are saying they're not seeing that slide. I don't know if can you share the slide in the chat?
Yeah.
It'll be available after, so please don't worry, because I think it is just quite interesting to see how it can be balanced out, you know, in a particular topic. There's lots and lots of areas of numeracy and maths, and I knew today that there'd be a real range of people here today, so I kind of pitched it in the middle at second level because I knew there'd be early right up to secondary staff as well. So that was just, it's a really simple way of using sway and forms in that blended or flipped model as well. Next slide, George, please. That's the last one.
Potential support material.
And then, yeah, that's right. And it's just, there's just a few links in here that just you might find useful. There's some links to the Scotland Learns materials, so you might want to consider some of the activities from that when you go forward to planning your blended approach. So it might be that you're giving them some online and some offline activities, and that has quite a lot of offline activities that you can look at. And also the other links are from schools that have very kindly shared work that they have created. So the first one is from Woodside Primary in Aberdeenshire, Aberdeen City I think it is, and there's lots of videos from early right through to second. You just need to go onto the tabs at the top of the page, and these people you know, kindly said that we can share them with you, which is great. Also looking at some higher videos for flipped learning. Some of you might have been in the West Partnership meeting a few weeks ago if you're part of that, from Nikki Lyons and Karen Opal. YouTube channel with lots and lots of videos for higher, and then another one from Gordon White from St Andrews, and that's advanced higher. What we're trying to do just now is just get a bank of these resources and share them widely, because we don't want people reinventing the wheel all the time, but the main thing is that you adapt them to fit your own context, and it's not just that lifting you. So yeah, that's me. So if anybody's got any questions about that.
Yeah, just a quick bit at the end there. I've shared an evaluation here, so if you could please fill in that. It takes about a minute and a half on average to do those evaluations. It just helps us understand what was useful in the session and what you'd like us to focus on in future.
My sound's coming in now.
Is that so? Just helps us plan the future sessions. What was useful? What would be better? Anything you'd like to see in future, and that helps us certainly shape the webinars. I hope that's been useful. What I'm going to do is spend the rest of today. I've got some of those demo videos just to finish rendering. We'll make a YouTube playlist of 10 things. And as I say, you'll be able to dip in and out of each activity as required. But what we'd really love to see is examples of how you've used any of these. And what's also really good is when people can look at it and say, I wouldn't use it like that. This is how I would use it, and you've got your own way of doing it. Those are really valuable to share. So if you've got anything for sharing, share it either here in the Teams, share it with us on Twitter. We've got @DigiLearnScot, and there's the maths team have got their own Twitter too. And at DigiLearn.Scot on our website, there is also an option for you to upload a blog post. So if you're doing something you think is really innovative, something that you're really proud of, you think something that's worth sharing, please do share that with us as a blog post on DigiLearn.Scot, and that will get published to be shared with a national audience. So it's really great to build that picture of how digital and other curricular areas work together. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us. Hope you stay safe, and I'm looking forward hopefully to almost summer holiday time.